A white journalist disguised himself as a black man to document racism in the US, wrote a book about it, and now everyone is furious. So what on earth is going down here? We have all the info, and the info is insane on this installment of Scroll Deep, the show that keeps up with internet nonsense so you don't have to. So a few days ago, journalist Sam Forster, who has written for The Spectator and The National Post, he tweeted, quote, "Last summer, I disguised myself as a black man and traveled throughout the United States to document how racism persists in American society. Writing Seven Shoulders," that's what the book is called, "was one of the hardest things I've ever done as a journalist." He went on to call it, quote, "the most important book on American race..." Sorry. "The most important book on American race relations that has ever been written." First of all, this man is Canadian, right? I feel like Canadians love doing stuff like this, when they're like, I will get to the bottom of the US. You're not even from here. Well, actually, sorry, in terms of the problems with this, number one, he is white. Number two, he's Canadian. So naturally, like us, you're probably like, give me all the information about this. Well, luckily, he wrote an article for the Daily Caller describing his experience of doing this. He said he put makeup on to darken his skin, saying, quote, "The particular one I landed on was Maybelline's Mocha shade, slightly darker than their coconut product, but not quite as dark as Java. I figured it was best not to get too ambitious." Yeah, God forbid you go too far with this. He went on to say, "I didn't really feel like shaving my head, so I opted to go for an afro wig, which would also serve the purpose of signaling my race more clearly to approaching cars while I stood on the shoulders." So basically, Seven Shoulders, it documents his experiences hitchhiking across America. The shoulders, I think here refer to like the shoulder at the side of the road. And it basically seems like he dressed up as a black person and tried to hitchhike, and a lot of people just passed him by and didn't pick him up, and he's basically reached some conclusions from that. The shoulders in particular are in Nashville, Birmingham, Alabama, not Birmingham in the UK, Atlanta, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Chicago, and Detroit. So, I mean, a lot of major places that are known to have African American populations. So if you happen to be in any of those places last year and you saw a white guy very clearly doing blackface at the side of the road, it was probably Sam. The book is being published by Slaughterhouse Media, and the official book overview on Amazon reads, quote, "Journalistic blackface," and I immediately have taken like 100 psychic damage just from the phrase journalistic blackface. A third of my HP bar has been depleted by that phrase. "Journalistic blackface was one of the driving forces behind the civil rights movement. Citation needed. By going undercover to expose the harsh realities of Jim Crow, journalists Ray Spriegel, John Howard Griffin, and Grace Halsell shaped the racial attitudes of untold millions of their white compatriots. Seven Shoulders is an homage to their work and a vigorous attempt to make sense of American race relations in the modern era." So there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, the narrative is absolutely wild here, that the real heroes of the civil rights movement were not, you know, MLK or any of the many actual black people, but it was actually a small collection of white journalists who did blackface. They were the real heroes. And I looked into this, and this is actually a thing that happened. There were journalists in the 60s who, multiple ones did this, where they would black up and like live as black people in black communities and then go back and write articles about it. And apparently there was a best-selling book about it. But the argument against them is the same argument you could make today against Sam, which is like, why do you as a white person have to experience being black in order to know what it's like, instead of just like talking to an actual black person for 5 minutes? Why do you have to do it? Why does the information have to be lived and reported by a white man? I get it in the sense in the early 60s that, for example, maybe they wouldn't even let a black writer write for a newspaper, right? Okay, so fair enough, the news has to be delivered by a white journalist. But again, the white journalist could just go and talk to some black people and then write down what they say. He doesn't have to darken his skin. But interestingly, that description I just read you from Amazon, that was not actually the original description. They quickly changed it. Originally, it said, quote, "6 decades after the passage of the Civil Rights Act, award-winning, again citation needed, journalist Sam Forster performs a daring transformation in order to taxonomize the various types of racism that persist in modern America." Taxonomy is basically categorizing things, which sends a shiver down my spine, because is he going to try and break down racism into like categories? Is that what this book is about? And then it says once again, Seven Shoulders is the most important book on American race relations that has ever been. The book apparently features interviews with black leaders, including, quote, a sitting US congressman and, quote, the mayor of a major American city, who I think might be Eric Adams, because he is himself black, he is the mayor of New York, and he is insane. So I think he's the only mayor of a major American city who would actually sit down and talk to this journalist. I don't know that for sure, though. I'm not slandering anyone, but I think it could be Eric Adams. Although, we don't know, because the names of all these people have been redacted in the book, and Sam said that he also didn't tell any of them about the blackface thing that was part of the project, as in the whole thing. He spoke to the newspaper The Independent. He said people should read the book before criticizing it. Of course. He's like, guys, what you really need to do is buy the book. Of course he's going to say that. He said he also wouldn't share any photos of the disguise he used. He said, quote, as I mentioned in the book, the point of this project is to foster serious, productive dialogue. If people are looking for a minstrel show, they should look somewhere else. I don't know about that, Sam. He also said that the fact that people on social media keep asking him to see the image of him in costume showed, quote, crude and corrupting impulses of the masses. And he says that it, quote, says more about the masses than it does about me. I don't know if that is true, because when he shared this on Twitter, everyone's immediate reply was like, Sam, we're gonna need to see what on earth you did to yourself. You can't just drop this information and not drop any pictures. And he's like, you guys are so immature that you want to see this. That says more about you than me, the normal man who did this. The reactions are exactly as you would expect. Ellie Mistel tweeted, quote, option A, talk to actual black people. Option B, whatever in the Tropic Thunder this is. At Killer Court said, you had to do blackface to understand the issues black people face? Black Knight 10K said, if you knew any black people, they would have saved you from getting torched on the internet because they would have told you this is a bad idea. The book currently has an average review of 1.15 stars on Goodreads after 16 reviews. Although I will say a lot of the reviews seem to be a reaction to his tweet. People just kind of annoyed the book exists. Maybe someone will read it and it'll be amazing. I highly doubt it. It's also #1 in the like racial discrimination chart on Amazon, because Amazon, we've talked about this before, it's a bit like how the New York Times has a million different charts, Billboard has a million different charts. Like everyone can be a New York Times best-selling author as long as you pick a specific enough category. So his book is #1 on Amazon, but in the specific category of books about racial discrimination. And like going around being like, I'm #1 at racial discrimination is not necessarily what you want. But then again, this is, arguably the most important book about race relations ever written. I will say, look, we've not read the book. We're not going to read the book. I don't want to support this book. So I don't actually know, like, the conclusions he reaches in the book. A small part of me worries that he's going to be like, it wasn't as bad as everyone says. But perhaps he will have some breakthroughs, some insights about American race relations. I feel like you don't need that much data to know that there's racism in America. It's kind of a feature, not a bug, really. It's pretty prevalent. So I don't think it's going to be much of a revelation if he's like, people were racist to me. It's like, yeah, that's like the concept of the United States. But all I can say is, there's no question I can ask the audience. Normally I would then end the episode by asking a probing question of my audience of like, what do you think about this? But I imagine we're all pretty much on the same page. So instead, I would like you to comment your favorite type of cake. Are you a carrot? Or do you enjoy a Victoria sponge? Let me know your favorite type of cake. And birthday cake doesn't count. That's a genre, not a flavor.
I disagree.
Oh. And hey, maybe you disagree with that, and then we can get some real debate going there. And the people who look at the comments and they're like, why is everyone commenting about cake? It's because they don't care enough to make it all the way to the end. They're not real viewers like you. You're the real heroes. Pat yourselves on the back for that. Till next time, don't do this.